Before we begin, if you enjoy stories of family betrayal, shocking revelations, and sweet, satisfying karma, please take a moment to subscribe to Revenge Janet. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell, so you never miss our new uploads of intense, emotional, and spine-chilling revenge stories. Now sit back and enjoy this tale of family deception where justice is finally served. I never thought my own family could betray me so completely. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves as I stood before my childhood home for the first time in 5 years. The old Victorian house looked smaller than I remembered, its white paint peeling around the edges, the garden my mother once tended now overgrown with weeds. This was not how I had imagined my homecoming would be. Returning from my father's funeral. "You do not have to do this today," my husband Mark whispered, his hand warm against the small of my back. "We could come back tomorrow." I shook my head. I could not put it off any longer. They are expecting me. 5 years ago, I had left this house, this town, and the family that resided within these walls. Not by choice, but because I had been cast out, labeled a thief and a liar by my stepmother, Eleanor, and her son, my stepbrother, Richard. My father, blinded by his new wife's manipulation, had believed their accusations over my desperate pleas of innocence. The memory still burned like acid in my veins. "Janet," a familiar voice called from the porch. My younger half-sister, Lily, now 23, rushed down the steps and threw her arms around me. She was the only one who had maintained contact over the years, secretly calling when she could. "I cannot believe you actually came." "Of course I did," I said, returning her embrace. He was still my father. Lily pulled back, her eyes red-rimmed from crying. "They are all inside. Eleanor has been difficult since it happened." "When has she ever been anything else?" I could not help the bitterness that seeped into my voice. As we entered the house, the memories flooded back. Holiday gatherings before my mother's death, my father's laughter echoing through the hallways, the warmth that had once filled this home. But that was long ago, before Eleanor had entered our lives and systematically turned my father against me. The living room was filled with relatives and family friends, most of whom glanced away awkwardly when they saw me. 5 years might have passed, but the scandal that had surrounded my departure was clearly still fresh in their minds. In the center of the room, Eleanor sat regally in my father's favorite armchair, dressed in an expensive black dress, her face a mask of grief that did not reach her eyes. Richard stood beside her, now 35 and looking more like his mother than ever, with the same calculating gaze and perpetual smirk. He had always resented me, even before the accusations that had led to my exile. "Janet," Eleanor acknowledged coldly as I approached. "How unexpected." "I came to say goodbye to my father," I replied, keeping my voice steady. "Nothing more." "Well, the service is tomorrow. I suppose you will need somewhere to stay. Your old room has been repurposed." The way she said it made it clear that all traces of my existence had been purged from the house. "We have a hotel room," Mark interjected, his protective instincts flaring. Eleanor's eyes flicked dismissively to my husband before returning to me. "The reading of the will is scheduled for the day after tomorrow. Your presence is not required, but I suppose you are entitled to hear what your father decided." I could not miss the glimmer of satisfaction in her eyes, and my suspicions immediately deepened. Whatever was in that will, Eleanor was confident it would hurt me. "I will be there," I assured her, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing me wounded. The remainder of the afternoon passed in a blur of uncomfortable conversations and thinly veiled hostility. Only Lily seemed genuinely happy to see me, sticking close to my side and filling me in on the past 5 years in hushed tones. "Dad was not himself these past few months," she whispered when we finally had a moment alone in the kitchen. "He started asking about you, wanting to know how you were doing." My heart clenched. Did he ever say he believed me? Lily hesitated. "He never said it outright, but something changed. He began questioning Eleanor's stories, especially after he got sick." And then, she glanced toward the doorway, lowering her voice even further. "He changed his will. Just 3 weeks ago." I felt a flicker of hope, quickly tempered by caution. "Did he tell you what changes he made?" "No, but Eleanor has been in a complete panic ever since she found out. She and Richard have been whispering, arguing behind closed doors. I have overheard them mentioning your name several times. Before Lily could say more, Richard appeared in the doorway, his gaze suspicious. What are you two conspiring about? Just catching up, I replied smoothly. It has been 5 years after all. Richard's eyes narrowed. Some things never change, do they, Janet? Still manipulating everyone around you. I was falsely accused, Richard. We both know that. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper. You should not have come back. There is nothing for you here. My father's funeral is here, I countered. And despite what you and your mother might think, I loved him. Love? Richard scoffed. Is that why you tried to steal from him? Is that why you broke his heart? I felt Mark's presence behind me before I heard him. I think that is enough reminiscing for one day, my husband said firmly. Janet, we should get back to the hotel and rest before tomorrow. Richard backed away, but the threat in his eyes remained. By all means go. But remember, Janet, this is not your home anymore. It has not been for a long time. As we left the house, I could feel Eleanor's cold stare following us down the driveway. 5 years ago, I had fled this place in tears, my reputation in tatters. This time would be different. This time, I was not running away. The funeral service was a somber affair, held in the same church where my father had married Eleanor 12 years earlier. I sat with Mark and Lily in the second row, acutely aware of Eleanor and Richard in front of us, playing the roles of grieving widow and devoted son to perfection. As people stood to share memories of my father, I noticed something strange. Several of his oldest friends, men and women who had known him for decades, kept glancing in my direction with expressions that seemed almost apologetic. When his business partner of 30 years spoke, he mentioned my father's regrets and wishes for reconciliation, while looking directly at me. Eleanor shifted uncomfortably in her seat. After the service, at the cemetery, I placed a single white rose on my father's casket, whispering a private goodbye to the man who had raised me, who had once been my hero before he had chosen to believe the worst of me. As people began to disperse, an elderly man approached me, Mr. Harrington, my father's attorney for as long as I could remember. Janet, he said quietly, shaking my hand. It is good to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Thank you for coming, Mr. Harrington. He glanced over my shoulder to where Eleanor was watching us intently. I will see you tomorrow for the reading of the will. Your father was very specific about certain matters. Before I could ask what he meant, he patted my arm and walked away, leaving me with a renewed sense of unease. That evening, Lily called my hotel room, her voice trembling with excitement. Janet, you need to come to the house tonight. There is something you have to see. What is it? I asked, immediately concerned. I cannot say over the phone. Eleanor and Richard are going out to dinner with Aunt Martha. They will be gone for at least 2 hours. Please, it is important. Mark looked worried when I told him about the call. It could be a trap, he suggested. Richard has always had it out for you. This is Lily, I reminded him. She would never set me up. Nevertheless, I agreed that Mark should come with me just in case. When we arrived at the house, Lily was waiting anxiously on the porch. She hurried us inside and led us directly to my father's study, a room that had once been strictly off-limits to everyone except my father and later, Eleanor. I found something while looking for Dad's insurance papers last week, Lily explained, closing the door behind us. I did not tell anyone else. She went to my father's desk and opened the bottom drawer, removing a false bottom that I had never known existed. From this hidden compartment, she extracted a small leather-bound journal and handed it to me. It is Dad's private journal. He started writing in it about a year ago, after his first cancer diagnosis. I think you should read it. With trembling hands, I opened the journal to where a bookmark had been placed. My father's familiar handwriting filled the page. Asterisk, I cannot shake the feeling that I have made a terrible mistake with Janet. After all these years, certain inconsistencies in Eleanor's story have begun to surface. The missing heirloom jewelry she claimed Janet stole. Eleanor wore a piece of it to a charity gala last month, claiming it was a replica. But I recognized it. It was my mother's original emerald necklace, The very one Janet was accused of stealing. Asterisk. Asterisk. I confronted Eleanor about it. And her explanation was too rehearsed, too perfect. For the first time in 10 years, I am questioning everything. What if Janet was telling the truth? What if I cast out my own daughter based on lies? The thought is unbearable, but I must consider it. I have asked Harrington to investigate quietly. Asterisk. I flipped through more pages, my vision blurring with tears as I read entry after entry documenting my father's growing suspicions and his terminal cancer diagnosis. In the final entries, his writing became shakier, but his resolve was clear. Asterisk. I have changed my will. It may be too late to make amends with Janet in person, but I can at least ensure justice is done. Eleanor will not be pleased, but I owe this to my daughter. I only hope she can forgive me someday. Asterisk. The last entry was dated just 2 days before his death. I closed the journal, my hands shaking. He knew, I whispered. He finally knew the truth. Lily nodded, tears streaming down her face. I wanted you to see this before tomorrow. Eleanor does not know about the journal. Dad kept it well hidden. This changes everything, Mark said quietly. A noise from the front of the house made us all freeze. Lily peeked out of the study door. They are back early, she hissed. You have to go now. Take the journal. We slipped out through the back door just as Eleanor's voice echoed through the front hallway. As Mark drove us back to the hotel, I clutched the journal to my chest, my mind racing with possibilities and plans. The reading of the will took place in Mr. Harrington's downtown office. Eleanor arrived with Richard in tow, both dressed in impeccable morning attire. Lily came separately and sat beside me, squeezing my hand supportively under the table. Eleanor seemed supremely confident as Mr. Harrington prepared his documents, shooting me occasional smug glances. Richard, however, appeared tense, his fingers drumming nervously on the polished conference table. Before we begin, Mr. Harrington said, adjusting his glasses, I should note that Gordon Fielding made significant changes to his will 3 weeks before his passing. These changes were made of sound mind and with full legal capacity, as attested by myself and another witness. Eleanor's smile faltered slightly. Get on with it, please. Mr. Harrington nodded and began reading. The initial provisions were standard. Specific bequests to charities, friends, and relatives. Eleanor visibly relaxed as she was named the primary beneficiary of my father's life insurance policy. But then Mr. Harrington cleared his throat and continued. Regarding the family home and all assets contained therein, I hereby bequeath them to my daughters, Janet and Lily Fielding, to be shared equally between them. Eleanor's face drained of color. That is impossible, she snapped. There must be some mistake. There is no mistake, Mrs. Fielding, Mr. Harrington replied calmly. Furthermore, Mr. Fielding has left a sealed letter explaining his decision, to be opened now. He produced an envelope and carefully opened it, then read aloud. Asterisk, if this letter is being read, then I have passed without being able to make amends in person. 10 years ago, I made the gravest mistake of my life when I accused my daughter Janet of theft and dishonesty based on evidence presented by my wife Eleanor. Recent discoveries have led me to believe that this evidence was fabricated, and that Janet was innocent of all wrongdoing. Asterisk. Asterisk, it is my dying wish that the truth be known. Janet did not steal the family heirlooms or money as was claimed. I have reason to believe these items were taken by Eleanor and Richard themselves, in an attempt to discredit Janet and secure their position in my household and my will. Asterisk. Asterisk as such. I hereby reinstate Janet as my rightful heir alongside her sister Lily. Eleanor is to retain only what she brought into the marriage, plus the life insurance provision as stated. Asterisk. Asterisk, Richard Kane, my stepson, is to receive nothing from my estate, as I have evidence of his direct involvement in the plot against Janet. Asterisk. The room fell into stunned silence. Richard had gone deathly pale, while Eleanor's face contorted with fury. This is absurd, she shrieked. He was not in his right mind. The cancer medications. Mr. Fielding underwent a psychological evaluation the day he changed his will, Mr. Harrington interrupted. He was declared fully competent. Additionally, he reached into his briefcase and removed a folder. He provided me with evidence supporting his claims. The folder contained photographs of Eleanor wearing the supposedly stolen jewelry at various events, bank statements showing suspicious transfers from my father's accounts to Richard shortly after my departure, and most damning of all, a series of emails between Eleanor and Richard discussing their plot against me in explicit detail. Where did he get these? Richard demanded, his voice cracking. Mr. Harrington looked at him coldly. Your father hired a private investigator last year when his suspicions were aroused. The investigator was quite thorough. Eleanor stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I will contest this. You cannot expect me to leave my home of 12 years. You have 3 weeks to vacate the premises, Mr. Harrington informed her. Should you choose to contest the will, these materials, including evidence of fraud and theft, will be submitted to the district attorney's office. Eleanor turned to me then, her mask of gentility completely gone. You planned this somehow. You turned him against me in his final days. I met her gaze steadily, no longer the frightened, devastated young woman she had driven from her home. I did not have to do anything, Eleanor. The truth has a way of revealing itself sooner or later. This is not over, Richard hissed, supporting his mother as she swayed on her feet. Actually, I said, reaching into my bag and removing my father's journal. I believe it is. I placed the journal on the table. My father kept a detailed record of his suspicions and discoveries. It makes for fascinating reading. Eleanor lunged for the journal, but Mr. Harrington was quicker, sliding it toward himself and out of her reach. I will add this to the file, he said calmly. As Eleanor and Richard stormed out, Lily burst into tears, not of sadness, but of relief. He knew, she kept saying. Dad knew before he died. I wrapped my arm around my sister's shoulders, feeling a complex mix of vindication, grief, and a strange sense of peace. He did his best to make it right in the end. In the weeks that followed, the full extent of Eleanor and Richard's deception came to light. Not only had they framed me for theft, but they had systematically isolated my father from his oldest friends, intercepted my letters and calls attempting to explain my side of the story, and even fabricated evidence of further betrayals to ensure he would never reach out to me. Eleanor contested the will, as threatened, but quickly withdrew her challenge when faced with the prospect of criminal charges. She and Richard vacated the house, leaving behind a trail of petty destruction, broken fixtures, stained carpets, and walls stripped of artwork. Lily and I stood in the empty living room the day we officially took possession of the house, surveying the damage. What will you do now? She asked. Will you move back? I looked around at the home that had once meant everything to me, now tainted by years of deception and pain. No, I said finally. This house holds too many difficult memories. But I will not sell it either. It should stay in the family. Then, I turned to my sister with a smile. I think you should live here, Lily. Make new memories. Start fresh. I took her hands in mine. And I would like to use my share of the inheritance to start a foundation in Dad's name. Something to help families torn apart by deception and manipulation find their way back to each other. Tears welled in Lily's eyes as she hugged me. He would have loved that. As I left my childhood home that day, I felt the weight of the past 5 years finally lifting. Eleanor and Richard had taken so much from me. My relationship with my father, years of my life, my sense of belonging. But in the end, they had lost everything while I had reclaimed not only my inheritance and my reputation, but something far more valuable. The knowledge that my father had believed in me again before he died. Sometimes justice takes its time, working quietly behind the scenes until the perfect moment arrives. For me, that justice came in the form of my father's final act of love, believing in me when it mattered most. As for Eleanor and Richard, last I heard, they had moved to a small apartment across town. Eleanor's social standing had crumbled as the truth about their scheme became known. Richard lost his job when his employer learned of his involvement in the fraud. Their comfortable life, built on lies and manipulation, had collapsed around them. Karma, as they say, always finds its way. I still visit my father's grave weekly, placing fresh flowers and sometimes simply sitting there, telling him about my life, my plans, the foundation that now bears his name. And though he cannot answer, I feel his presence, and his approval. in the gentle breeze that rustles the leaves above his final resting place. In the end, the inheritance I received was not just material wealth, but the restoration of truth and the vindication I had sought for so long. My father's final gift to me was something Eleanor could never take away. The knowledge that love, though it may be temporarily blinded by deception, eventually finds its way back to the truth. And that, I discovered, was the greatest inheritance of all. If you enjoyed this tale of family betrayal and sweet karma, please subscribe to Revenge Janet for more stories where justice is served and the deserving finally get what is coming to them. New stories uploaded regularly that will leave you satisfied and craving more. Thank you for listening.